Our next guest's mission is to raise awareness of the power of music as self-care. He is a world's leading expert on the power of music for physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. Holds magna cum laude degrees in piano performance and creative writing, and has led a successful IT consulting practices for more than 30 years. In 2011, our next guest launched Music Care Incorporated for-purpose corporation to teach and advocate for practical uh, ways music can be used for your self care. He was recognized by the National Council for Behavioral Health, which with an award of excellence in 2014, the industry equivalent of winning an Oscar. Wow. Our guest has started piano lessons at the age of 3 years old. He grew up playing and performing and realizing very early that the discipline of playing the piano was also a behavioral healthcare practice. When he began non-seeking traditional audiences, Alzheimer's patients, and people struggling with physical and emotional injuries, stressed out business people, parents, caregivers, he began to understand the true power of music as a tool. He has been a witness to the power of music throughout his life and speaks openly about how he used music as a self intervention in his own behavioral health care, including confronting suicidal tendencies. His volunteer work in the field brings him into consistent contact with people who are of age and have been homeless, abused, abused substances, and are combat injured or are caregivers. He is the world's most leading expert on music's power for physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. And here he is today to inspire us all. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bill Protzmann.
Mr. Cox. Shall we
Yes,
be
sir.
formal?
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Cox. It's a pleasure to be here on your show.
Man, it is so great to have you because I just listed a whole lot of stuff, which is incredible, incredible stuff. So I'm really, really, really excited to have you on. So thank you for
Well,
coming
thank you.
on.
I'm humbled to hear all that. It's like at some point in your life, you kind of wonder, why am I here? And then a host
And
will
then I just
introduce
said a
me,
whole
and it's
lot
like,
of
yeah, it's like, wow,
yeah, yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
I don't share this openly, but anybody who wants to research it can find out that the Behavioral Health Care Award of Excellence from the National Council on Behavioral Health Care, it's a lot of words.
Yeah.
So they give those awards of excellence to people who have sort of dealt with a lifetime of behavioral health issues. And my lifetime of behavioral health issues is off the charts on both sides. So I grew up chronically depressed. And when I finally, like in my late 30s, early 40s, had a therapist that was working with me and gave me some clinical testing, I turned out to also have schizophrenic tendencies. So not only am I chronically depressed, suicidally ideated, but I had these schizophrenic tendencies. Basically, I just don't fit in the box, man.
Right.
They can't put me in a category.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, you've pretty much done it all, really. I mean, because
Yeah.
looking and reading your introduction, I just said, man, you've been through it. So.
But you don't set out to do like all that. It just sort of happens to you.
Right.
And I got to hear your episode with Savannah, and she's got this #1 song in South Africa, right?
Right.
And I had a #1 song too, but I didn't even know it was happening at the time.
Really? Wow.
And
okay.
You remember mp3.com?
Yes, sir.
That
way
ancient
back when.
streaming. Yeah, way back when.
Years. Yeah.
And people's like, Bill, you got to put a song on MP3. So in the 90s or whatever it was, I uploaded my take on Amazing Grace. And it's like, okay, so you upload a song, right? And dang it all, I mean, it was #1 for like a month in July of some 93, 90, I don't even remember right now. But it's like, whoa, that happened.
Oh, and you
So
didn't even know, did you?
I didn't even know. Somebody had to tell me.
Oh, really? So,
Yeah.
where were you when somebody told you?
Actually, I was performing. Well, I wasn't on stage performing, but I was in Colorado at this little tiny town, West Cliff, Colorado, which is nowhere, but it has a performing arts center. And I have a friend who helped get it started. It was an old theater, like from the 1890s, carbon arc projectors and this, just crazy thing. But it's a full-on performing arts center there now. They do festivals, or they will when COVID's done.
No.
But I was up there performing, and somebody in the audience said, "Hey, Bill, afterward, did you know that you're got a #1 song on mp3.com?" And I was blown away.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You're like, holy crap. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
well, that happened.
Oh.
And and that same medley. No, I'm going to sound like I'm bragging. I'm not bragging, people. I'm just sort of like, this is so curious that these things happen. But
Right.
years later, like, I don't know, it was probably maybe 10 years ago now, I got an email one day, and that medley has been included in the Library of Congress permanent collection.
Yeah.
For Amazing Grace.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah, like, okay, yeah, that's fine.
That's cool. I mean, you don't set out to, like, get your song included in the Library of Congress.
Right.
It's like, I didn't even know what that means.
That's
I mean,
amazing. Yeah.
so stuff happens, and I'm just so grateful that the music touches people, whoever they are, whoever's music it is. James, it doesn't really matter if you're touched by music. You and I were talking about this just a few minutes ago. Music is like especially right now, we got the election holding up.
Yeah.
Having on the music is just, it helps keep me grounded, man.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you why I started this. I am also have depression too, and music just does something to me that really makes me feel better about myself.
Yeah.
It's really motivating, and when words speak, when music, when words fail, music speaks. That's you can't be further from the truth on that one, because there are some songs out there that I what what I can't even explain how that made me feel, and that's so amazing, So yeah,
there's some songs when I just remember them, it makes my skin crawl.
Yeah,
in a good way, right? There's the scary stuff too, but I can if I need it, I can grab a piece of music and just bring it to mind and start to play, and it changes everything. I mean, I can feel it changing me. I breathe, my shoulders drop, I just become relaxed. Same thing for upregulation too, but most of the time these days, man, we're way too upregulated. It's just
right. Yeah.
Give me some peace. So, I've got playlists that help me out there. And in this process of our journey of depression, if I can say it that way, how beautiful that we have music, because we can sort of do depression safely. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes. You don't have to, there's no self-harm involved in that. You can just go deeply into the feeling,
right?
Knowing that, it's going to pass, like a good laugh or a good cry, it's going to pass. And the music somehow helps to speed that, so it doesn't get all locked up inside and turn me into a really stressed out person, which I tend to do too.
Oh no, dude. Yeah.
Full disclosure.
Yeah. One of the other reasons why me and my co-host Blake mostly started this podcast, to be fully honest with you, is I don't want anybody else to feel like the way that I do when I'm depressed. I just wanted everybody to feel happy for at least an hour, however long our episodes are, to get away from all their stuff going on. It's just 1 hour of full relax. That's why I do it. It's just make other people happy. So because I don't want them to go through what I went through, what I go through when I'm depressed too.
Yeah.
So,
I'm with you on that. There's so much about music that's joyous. I mean, growing up as a classical piano player, you don't really find fun music when you're doing that until later on. And I'm fortunate that I found some fun music. I love to play ragtime. And that sort of track of my music thing was just a blast. It was a gas from the word go. The first time I ever performed ragtime, it was so much fun. And then that led to a Dixieland band and just all of this sort of musical theater work that has been so satisfying and beautiful for me. And it's hard work. I mean, it's challenging, but it's way more fun than preparing for a classical recital.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's
Right.
true. Yeah.
And I love the heavy music too. I mean,
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
get in that place, you just need, depth and
Yeah.
sometimes you just need angst, like
Right.
Metallica or whatever. Just
Yeah.
put it on, man, let it play. But the joy that comes.
It's so funny that you mentioned that because when I was growing up, my mom and dad took me to Busch Gardens. I'm
Oh yeah.
sure you're familiar with, and they took me to like all kinds of country concerts there because country artists came with like the millions there. So I saw Johnny Cash and Reba McEntire
Oh, lucky man.
and yeah, but see, I don't remember seeing Johnny Cash, and my mom's like, "Yep, you did." I'm like, "Oh my god, dude!"
You
I
were
saw Johnny
there.
Cash, and yeah, and I didn't even know it. Yeah, but during high school, I got out of the country phase, and I moved on to just straight Metallica,
Sweet.
like you were saying, you know, and that was my band for like in the next 10 to 15 years, And then when I got in college, I started developing my love for country music and other genres of music too. So I really broadened my mind to experience all these unique sounds and that other genres you know um can produce for me. Yeah.
It's like flavors of ice cream or something, but that's probably a bad analogy. It's like flavors of food. We need it all.
Yeah. Right.
And I didn't learn to like spinach right away.
Who does, right?
Right? Who does? But there was a point where it was like, oh wow, this is really good. What is this? Spinach? That stuff I used to hate.
Right.
And I've become much less judgmental, I guess, about new music. Fortunately, over the
I have
last 10
to.
years or so, I've had my second family, all teenage daughters, and they introduced me to more modern stuff, and I got really into
Yeah.
rap and hip hop. And man, there's some awesome music happening out there right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And it turned me into a music hunter. My wife is as well, and she's like the music curator in our family.
Right.
And we're finding, well, we had this whole playlist developed over last winter of songs by Norwegian folk singers.
Mm.
You can't hear
Wow.
this. It's not in English, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
music is incredible. It's just like, wow. I
Yeah.
mean, this music exists, right?
Right.
And I'm sure you've heard like Russian metal bands out of the Ukraine. You can't understand the words,
No. Right.
but some of that European metal is sublime, just over the
Yeah.
moon. And I mean, it's poetry, and it speaks in a way that American pop music doesn't necessarily speak. And I just discovered something really cool, which you probably already know. But I had as part of the quest, I teach this online course. We
Right.
had a guy from South Africa. He introduced all this South African country music. So the fact that Savannah's song is like a #1 song in South Africa,
Yeah.
wow, there's this huge appreciation for country music in South
Right.
Africa of all places.
Right. Yeah. And
And
who
it's
knew?
gorgeous. And
Yeah.
the indigenous South Africa, oh, it's so amazing. And of course we can hear it now, thanks to technology. One of the good uses of the internet.
Right.
We can collect all that music and participate in it. Have you ever heard of a guy named Alexei Murdoch? Has he come your way?
I have
Look for
not.
him later.
No.
I can send you notes on that.
Okay. Oh
And
yeah.
then there's this
Please do.
amazing band. What are they called? They're called the Two Tracks now. A folk band that started in California and now they're in Wyoming or Montana or someplace. Just who would have ever heard of these bands?
Right.
And yet they're able to get on the world stage and have followers and fans that can support them and whatever. And what an incredible time to be a music consumer, I guess.
Right.
Let's put it that
Exactly.
way,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you might have to go all the way back to your childhood.
Oh, if you must.
All the way, but yes, sir. Well, I mean, Okay. So first, okay. So you're a pianist.
Yep.
How were you introduced to the piano?
Well, I kind of
At 3 years old.
I didn't have a choice. Mom
Oh,
was a
okay.
piano teacher. Well, she was a primary education teacher who played the
Okay.
piano, and she decided probably after my sister and I had gone through the ringer with her that she was going to do that and as a living. And she made a studio, and she had lots of kids come to the studio.
Oh, nice.
So I was first, and then my sister,
Yeah.
and I lasted with Mom for maybe 2, 3 years, and then I've had a succession of teachers since then.
Okay.
But it wasn't really like an option. The piano was in the house, and I was going to learn to play, and some of the earliest photos of me are sitting at the piano on my mom's lap.
Uh, yeah.
So I did, and it was painful. I mean, I'll be honest with you,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
until I was in fifth grade or something,
Mm,
it was just a grind.
well,
Sitting and practicing when you want to be outside playing with your friends, and
yeah.
there's not a lot of fun to that. But ragtime came along.
Yeah.
Movie The Sting came out, and I had just learned to play a piece of ragtime that wasn't in The Sting, but all of a sudden I was learning Scott Joplin, and people wanted to hear it, and I had a blast. For the rest of my high school and college, I was just playing music that nobody else was playing, and people wanted to hear, and that's really gratifying, as a
Yeah.
musician.
Right. So, you said that your mom was your teacher. So what was her methods into teaching you how?
This is a great question, James. Thanks for asking. Um, so when so I grew up in the 60s, and at that time there weren't too many piano theory, uh, pedagogical piano studies out there. There were a few, Francis Clark method, and
Right.
I don't know, John Thompson piano method. And Suzuki was actually in the world, but it wasn't in America yet. So Mom started me out on a combination of things, but she eventually became a Suzuki piano teacher. And Suzuki's famous because you see these giant concerts of little tiny kids with little tiny violins sawing away and all playing
Right.
together, hundreds of kids all playing at the same time. And so it's for all instruments, but it did start out with strings and eventually it worked into piano. And she then sort of developed that even further because her background is pre-primary. She realized that there was something about music that helped kids focus, and that focus went beyond the instrument. It
Mm,
helped you be able to focus at school if you're doing schoolwork or doing chores or playing games or whatever. As a musician, you develop holistically. Like you develop your eyes to read the music, you develop your ears to hear what you're playing. You
right.
know how to make the right touch happen on your instrument so that sound is good. And if you ever
Yeah.
heard a beginning violin student, you'll know exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
But you have to develop all that, and so that of course affects your brain and motor skills. And by the time you go through the process and become proficient, able to play well, um, you've actually given your whole being a boost that affects every aspect of your life. And yeah, musicians tend to be good at math, but there's a behavioral health care side to this too. So Mom never shied away from taking little kids. In fact, her studio was mostly kids that were pre-primary or primary education, including lots of kids that would eventually be diagnosed as ADHD or have some other learning, quote, disability.
Right.
Didn't stop Mom. And
Good.
right. And
Yeah.
so she was able to help those kids in ways that medications just don't.
Yeah.
Instead of suppressing their tendencies, Mom was able to help them, direct them toward a goal, toward a musical goal.
Mhm.
And by allowing that to happen, those kids were then able to go off and do other things where they could direct their energies that way. And the greatest proof I had of this was when my college music teacher, piano teacher, PhD, performing artist, all of that, had kids that weren't able to focus on their instruments. She picked up the phone and called my mom, and Mom gave her some ideas. And both of her kids now, my college professors, piano professors' kids, are classical musicians playing at high levels. One's in an orchestra, I think, playing clarinet. Another one is a piano player, playing amazing levels in the world from a background that might have resulted in them being medicated in some other environment. And so I'm just so grateful that music is there for these kids because they're adults
Yeah.
now because of what it was able to do with them. And
Right.
thank you, Mom, for helping perhaps me and my sister navigate some pretty difficult times too that we didn't become aware of until we were adults later.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So yeah, so God bless her. Mom did some great work, and I hope
Well.
touched a lot of kids' lives, a lot of families' lives.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Because it's it's not for just an individual. It's music is for the whole family too, to get in on and relate to each other, what they like, what you need to hear, what you know. It's like and everyone has different likes and dislikes. And for somebody to come up and say, "Hey, you need to listen to this band or check out this piano," it's amazing. So
And we
yeah,
connect. Like if you and I were to listen to some music that we'd never heard before for the first time, we'd learn stuff about each other
right,
listening to that music that you couldn't learn any other way.
right,
Or sharing music like that just creates a connection that you can't create without the music. It's so cool.
yeah.
And of course, being a vehicle for that as a musician is really amazing. But anybody can be a vehicle for that just by picking up your iPhone, or I was going to say iPod, by picking up your
Same
iPhone.
thing too.
I just hate
Yeah,
myself.
yeah,
Say, hey, have you heard James? Listen to this music, man. I've never heard this before. What do you think? And getting the music and the vibe together and being able to share that, which I mean we could do remotely, right? If it
yeah,
wasn't a
yeah.
podcast being recorded and we'd get busted for licensing, we could do it now.
There you go. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, can't do that. So, um, did you start writing music at an early age, or did you start writing when you felt more comfortable, like learning how to play the piano and
Hmm.
understanding where everything was and everything you needed to sound like? When did you
What a-
start writing music?
That's a lot of insight in that question too. I The first album that I made that was all original, I didn't write down beforehand. Just went into the studio and recorded it. Just turned on the mic and boom.
Right.
And I've made a couple albums since that are pretty much the same way, but I have like taken the time to write music down. And to me, that seems like, I want to go running. I want to run and I have to stop and stodgy and write this stuff and whatever. But I had to do some of that, of course, in college. Um, there's a requirement, not for composition. I didn't take any music composition in college, but
Mm,
our theory class had a musical composition requirement. I actually got to play a piece I'd written on the pipe organ at the school, which was a little bit embarrassing, but it was fun. So the flow of the music as improvisation sort of came first for me, and then the discipline of writing it down and actually making something complete out of it that could be repeated by somebody else. That came
right.
later.
Um,
And it's a great joy to do that. One of the days where I was so depressed, it was just, you can probably relate to those days where you just want all the lights to go out and be quiet.
yes.
The
Yes.
morning after that, I woke up and I had music in my head, and I realized it was a song, and I wrote it down, and then the words came and I wrote that, and pretty soon I had this song and it was all done. By the time I realized what was happening, it was all done.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So that kind of flow does happen too. It's a famous poet whose name I always forget said it's like a poem is like trying to run after a train that's going quickly through the station, and you want to catch it before it leaves. And
Right.
I've had that experience with music where you want to try to catch, you want to get it all before it's gone, right? And put it down in some
Right.
form that's useful. So
Yeah. Cool.
I think kind of a weird answer to your question, but
Mhm. Oh,
it
that's
it gets to the essence of it.
yeah. Yeah. So when you were in high school, did you you probably had recitals in high school, right? So did you sign up for, by yourself for those, or did your mom say you're too good? You need to show the world what you have.
Well, there
And
there
so like,
wasn't
did she sign you up, or did you go and
it, two things. I mean, I was chasing the fun stuff on my own. I played saxophone in the high school band, and I was the pit piano player in high school musicals. I actually did a melodrama as the pianist in the melodrama for an Elks Club or something.
right?
I was finding that stuff on my own, but because of the musical track that I was in with the what do they call it, the Music Teachers Association, there's just like in pro sports, there's amateur sports where people filter to the top and then those people get pushed to the next level, et cetera. So I was going through that kind of a thing with the Music Teachers Association, and won some competitions there and was a concerto soloist, and that kind of classical stuff that happens. But I realized at one point that I, chasing the classical piano scene, in fact, chasing the music scene in general, takes a real special kind of person.
Right.
And I wasn't that focused to be able to go for it at the level that the 7 or 8 people that play classical piano professionally
Mm.
do, or the half a dozen people that are jazz piano prodigies do. I wasn't a prodigy. I had to work hard for what I have. And the people who were in that realm, James, it just seemed to me that they were too narrow. There wasn't enough there.
Yeah.
And I wanted more. Like I wanted to be able to play piano and do everything else in life.
Yeah.
And that I would miss something if I focused at the piano 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
So I didn't chase it the way that many people do. And I'm happier that way, I think, because I don't know if the life of a professional concert pianist would really suit me. And even in
Yeah.
college, they said, Bill, you got to get a music degree. I'm like, no way. Have you seen those people? They're in this
I
practice room 8
know.
hours a day.
Yeah, I don't want to do that when I'm fun with my life. Yeah. Yeah.
you
That's
know?
true. Yeah.
So that's kind of where it went for me. And from time
Yeah.
to time, I've pushed, but the biggest push for me since college, years ago now, has been taking the initiative to actually offer music, like you said in the introduction, to audiences that wouldn't hear it in any other way.
Yeah.
Drag a grand piano to some place where there isn't one, and offer an audience that's used to coming to the place a novel kind of a concert or a novel musical experience. And so I've played in like galleries and given concerts, and we talked about Westcliff, Colorado. There's another one that was a great opportunity. Go to the middle of nowhere, Colorado, and drag a piano out there. So
Right.
places like that are the things that intrigue me. Being in front of people who wouldn't otherwise have a chance to experience what it's like to be in a concert hall with some guy in a tux and a grand piano.
Right.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
that's been
true.
the thing that motivates me. Of course, that's led to a bunch of other things too. But I love being in front of people who wouldn't otherwise have heard me play, or anyone else maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's awesome to hear. So, okay. So with depression, okay, there's this invisible monster called suicide. Okay.
Yep.
So I am not gonna lie to you. I have thought about it, but so thinking about it and doing it is two opposite, completely opposite things.
Sure
And
is.
I,
Yep.
and I don't think that many people are aware about that. Um, so I read in your profile before I had you on here that music saved your life in a way that not many people could understand. So can you go into that if you can, fast detail about it?
Sure.
That's one amazing story.
Yeah. It. What you're saying is, first of all, what you're saying is so true. I think, and many people do, that if you're talking about suicide, you're not doing it.
Right. Yeah.
And all the people who are professional at this intervention and whatever will say the same thing. And if you're listening right now and you want to make a difference in somebody's life who you think might be suicidal, there's training you can take called Question, Persuade, Refer, QPR. It's offered free by a lot of the counties and behavioral health organizations in the United States.
Yeah.
It's maybe an hour training.
Right.
And what it does is it gives you the confidence to be able to look at somebody in the eye and say, James, I'm concerned. You don't look like yourself these days. Is everything okay? And
Right.
just like open the door.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, it's very rare that you're going to get somebody to come back unless, like James and like me, we've been there before.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Hey, dude, I'm really feeling kind of suicidal today.
Yeah.
Most people say that, and you get committed.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The people get
But
concerned.
see, I heard I found out that if you even state the facts, some people or most people said, "Nah, you're not. You're."
Oh yeah,
you're
they try to
full
paper it over.
Yeah, they try to like, you're not going to do that. You shut up. It's like, dude, I'm asking for help, but I'm not asking for help, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and when I was in that place, the last thing I wanted was help. I had plenty of help. I could call my therapist, call my family, call my friends.
Right. Yeah.
Want help, man. I just needed to marinate.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so I didn't know much about suicide by that time. I had lost a friend to suicide, and I'd done some investigation, and there were antidepressants involved. And I thought, well, maybe that. But I tried antidepressants, didn't help. I mean,
Yeah.
as a musician, our job is to go deep. So if I can't go deeply into sadness, I'm not doing my job as a musician. Just like if I can't go deeply into joy,
Right.
or
Yeah.
anger or fear, whatever. So when I found myself at this place, which was really a turning point in my life, my marriage had ended. I'd gone bankrupt. I didn't have any cats. They'd all either gone with other people or passed away.
Yeah.
My daughter had just graduated high school. She was headed off to college. So I was an empty nester. I mean, everything that was part of meaning of life had sort of ended, and I had to reinvent who I was. And I'm not really great at that. And having a
Not either.
history, you know,
On that, yeah.
when you're in that place, you sort of regress into
Yeah.
your core, and my core had been big sadness for such a long time. And so on that particular evening where it just felt like all the wheels had come off and I had to stop, whatever that might be, I decided consciously that I wasn't going to pick up a rope or a gun or something like that, but that I was going to sit in my chair, put on the headphones, and put on a piece of music that had some meaning for me.
And what kind of music was that?
Right. So
Yeah.
the piece of music I chose is a
Okay.
piece that I'd heard ages before when I was homeless, literally couch surfing after my first divorce. This was the second one.
Mm.
And it came on my clock radio one morning. Remember clock radios, everybody? It
Really?
came on, and the alarm would go off, and it was tuned to your radio station, an FM radio station that played classical music. And the song woke me up. It was a classical piano song. I'll tell you in a minute. And it was weird because I know that I'd set the radio to classical music, and yet this song sounded new age. It sounded like George Winston, or one of those kind of weird, repetitive, a little bit monotonous but still melodic kind of pieces of music. I thought, this can't be right. The radio's on the wrong station.
Mhm.
But the music got me.
Yeah.
It captured me. And years later, I learned it, and I played it in my senior recital as one of the 3 pieces of Rachmaninoff that I chose. And that one's actually an etude tableau in A minor for people who want to know. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
But it meant something to me. And so that was the piece that I chose to sit with, and I put on repeat on my iPod, because that's what we had, and just let it play. And it is one of the saddest pieces of music. James,
Yeah.
there's maybe it isn't sad to everybody, but it was sad to me. And so I just sat there, and my intention was to just stay safe, to stay in the chair. But what happened was that I started to weep. I had no idea how sad I was.
Yeah.
And I must have cried for a long, long time, because I'd sat down around sunset on Labor Day of 2007. And when I woke up with the music still playing in my ears, it was full dark. And I was just exhausted. I was so tired. But I was still breathing. And all I could do was just drag myself to bed. And that's what I did, and slept. And I've realized since that, as terrible as I felt that night, and as much as I wanted to end it all, what the music did was to let those feelings flow through me instead of keeping them all stuck and prompting me to some destructive action.
Yeah.
The flow of them unlocked something in me.
Right.
And what that thing is that got unlocked that night, September, Labor Day of 2007, is still with me today. It's some sort of I was going to say it's an inspiration, but it's more than that. It's like a needle that sticks in me and says, no, keep doing this, keep doing this, keep doing this.
Right.
You need to do this, Bill. And it gave me back a sense of meaning and purpose, which can be annoying at times, I'll be honest with you. But it's kept me going with this kind of an intent ever since. And the realization is, not that I, quote, avoided suicide. The realization is that heroic journey, that deep, dark journey through the night of the soul, whatever you want to call it, that's something that's important to do, and to do well. And if we can master that process and do it with intent, just think of what we can unlock like the energy and the power that you can unlock by being able to make that dark journey successfully. And, you know, oh dang it, it's happened over and over. And I haven't faced it as suicide. What I've faced it with now is, okay, here it comes again. And I know that I can do this.
Right.
I don't know what the result's going to be, but I know that I can do this. So however dark, however deep, however sad, however scary it is, I know that I can do this.
Yeah.
And of course, the universe has provided me plenty of opportunities. So here we are, COVID. There's a deep dark opportunity. The election,
Yeah.
deep dark opportunity.
Deep. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
things come up, and I know that I can traverse those things. Now, I'm not the blown up soldier, but the folks who've had post traumatic stress or have combat injuries, and you see them on stage, you know, they're quadriplegics talking about what it means to be alive right now,
Mm.
you know, and how they didn't die. One of the guys that I've had the chance to work with a couple of times is a near-death experience survivor. He was shot and bleeding out, and he died for 15 minutes. He came back to life,
Wow.
and that changes you, right? And I know that these all sound dramatic and things in ways that we can't even imagine.
No.
And my little brush with suicide is, you know, pales in comparison.
Yeah.
And that's not what it's about. It's just like being willing to say, okay, it's traumatic, it hurts.
Yeah.
And here I am walking through it, you know, and on the other side of it, who knows, but I'm going to be changed by this experience in a way that will help on the other side, maybe help somebody else, you know,
Right.
that I can work with. I've run a suicide group. We had for a while, I ran a group called Suicide Without Judgment, where people could come and talk about suicide. We had a lot of people who were suicidal there, and we had a great time.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't lose anybody. And I guess the group did itself, you know, because we decided at one point we no longer needed it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So hooray.
Yeah.
And maybe just the willingness to go deep that way, knowing that you're safe, is one of the most beautiful gifts that music can give to us. You know, and if you're feeling that deep, then find music that supports that. Just listen, because you can survive that. You're just listening, right? You're just sitting there. You don't have to do anything. But go for it. You know, just be with that music and let it change you. Wow, that's a long answer to a short question.
No. That's perfect. That's what I was wanting to hear. So thank you very much for telling us that.
Oh, you're welcome, man.
Yeah. Every day I wake up and like, no, I don't. Today is gonna be a good day, you know, because if you do the suicide route, you're missing on everything that you could have done or had
it's over. That's it.
Opportunities for. That's it, you know. And there's so much things in life. There's colors. There's trees. You know, there's life. They're breathing around you. And I have too many um people that actually depend on me. Not so for me, I do it for them because I know if I had to help them out somehow, some way, it makes their life a little bit easier. And if they have suicide, that takes them all away from So and new music, man. New music's coming out every day. Man, I just got a vinyl record of Brothers Osborne. Have you heard of them?
You know, I'm vinyl record is what's
good,
making
dude.
breathe. Yeah, vinyl. It's coming like the organic, the real stuff.
It's back, man. Yeah,
yeah,
totally
it's back.
Yeah. So I just got vinyl, and I'm going to tell you 3 country artists that you need to hear. I don't know if you heard them right now, but Brothers Osborne is one of them.
Got it.
Chris Stapleton is amazing. And Luke Combs is the best country music artist today. I'm dying to get on him on my podcast.
Oh, I love
it. Man, he is it, you know. And he even released a new record, you know. So it's so amazing that you're missing out on a lot of good opportunities, a lot of good friends, you know. So yeah. So I'm very glad that I never even thought about doing it for like years and years and years. So,
I've got somewhere here.
It's amazing.
I've got this giant stack of papers, but somewhere in here is a little scribbled note that I wrote which I want to develop into an article someday about how country music is like the Mozart of our era,
Yes, it is.
right? It's so accessible and it speaks so deeply. And I don't want to say this in a pejorative way, but there's a simplicity about it that isn't in like prog rock or metal or something. It's just so clear.
Right.
And it's also got this wonderful paradoxical combination of joy and sadness in the same song. Like you could have sad lyrics and this happy music.
Mm-hmm.
That's just so amazing. It's like the blues, but it's inescapable how powerful that is, and the
Yeah.
fact that it's so popular.
Exactly.
That people
Exactly.
get that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they get that in some level. They can't describe it. They just buy the records, and great, do that. You know, because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what matters. That's
Yeah.
what's keeping the this art alive.
Right.
And it's indigenous sort of American music too.
Yeah.
I almost said it was like white blues, but I don't think that's actually accurate.
Mm.
I've been so influenced, of course, by African music in my musical career. Ragtime is African. Like that's what Black people in the United States did in the 1890s.
Right.
And jazz and like Miles, Louis, and just Ella. It's incredible. And we got B.B. King comes to mind.
BB King's
But
awesome.
Kebmo, one of my favorites, and he's riding the line between country and blues, and he does it so well, and it just blows me away. And the 2 tracks, I'm gonna look these guys up. Thanks, Chris Stable, and Luke Cohen. Who was the other one you said, brother, and I missed it?
Brothers Osborne.
Brothers Osborne.
Yeah, they're 2 brothers, and they do amazing. They're all country artists. And I will give you another one to write down, because I'm going to tell you a little story. You never know how music will touch you, and this happened to me in a long time. I have a good friend who comes into I work in a thrift store, and she comes in here like once or twice a month, and she's great. She's great, you know. Um, and her husband drives a NASCAR race. You know,
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I find that so cool. So, the guy that I want to tell you about is Eric Church. He has a song called Talladega, right? You know, the motor runway.
One of my favorite movies, Talladega Nights.
Yes, yes, very funny movie, man. Yeah. So when I take a shower, I always listen to music, because what else can you do in the shower, you know?
Yep.
And that song came on, and I don't know why it just overtook me, and I started crying.
There you go.
Like automatically.
Yeah.
And that song automatically reminded me about my friend Becca, you know. So I mean, she's amazing, and I've always wanted to take my dad to Talladega, or I wanted him to take me. We never had a chance to, and I don't know when this COVID stuff is going back, but I hope to God that that I do take him, because that song spoke many things to me that I just can't that I just can't relate to you right now. You know.
Well, I get it, because I understand what you're feeling. I mean, I don't understand your feelings precisely, but I know the process.
Right.
So when you say it made you cry, I'm like, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
In a good way, though. You know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
It brings it all in. And if you're listening to this right now and you have that kind of response, I've cried for happy music just as hard as I've cried for sad music.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. I mean, I remember sitting in church one time, and I don't know if I was singing or not. There was this music anyway in church, and I just started weeping. It's like I got embarrassed.
Yeah.
Nobody else was crying, but I was so overcome with feeling.
joy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just, that was the only thing I could do, and I've gotten pretty good at crying in public. You try not to do that on stage because it's overacting, but you know, if the feelings are there, then just let them go. Yeah. I get that feeling, you know, if I'm at a baseball game and they play the national anthem, it's like,
that's the most, I think that's most of the, I like I said before, I can't explain it, but I hear you, you know.
Yeah. Okay, this is not really political, but I was listening to a speech that Joe Biden made at Gettysburg, and he said something that really resonated for me, which is, imagine what it's like for a Black person to love America. And the only thing I could think of at that moment, James, was how the Star Spangled Banner makes me weep. Right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if, I don't know, who knows, but it got me not just thinking, it got me feeling. And it was such a beautiful moment for me. It was like whatever speechwriter wrote that, deserves a raise,
Mm.
because that's really what it's all about. It's like reaching out and saying, hey, imagine how James would feel if he heard Talladega.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm.
And that's the kind of thing that will stay with me now from
Yeah.
our interview.
Right.
That goes home with me, right? And when I hear that music for the first time, I'm going to know
You're gonna know that we're
that,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
and that's how we come together. That's how we come together. I mean, I
Yeah.
feel I'm I'm not a gospel piano player, but dude, Amazing Grace. I mean, that's like a universal song that belongs to everybody. The LGBT community has it. It was written by a slave trader.
Yeah.
It's been adopted by who knows who, and the words are just this universal meaning. It's like to plug into that is overwhelming if I think about it. I mean, I just like
Yeah.
playing the song, but
Right.
all of that is there too. And what an incredible, like, you can't even know the connections that are in the music when you hear it.
Right.
The
Yeah.
fact that you felt it in Talladega is so powerful. It's
Yeah.
just so powerful. It creates a bond that you can't get any other way.
Right. Yeah.
I got to go listen now.
Yes, please do. Man, that's an amazing song too. Um, okay, so you have a company called Music Here Incorporated.
Yes,
Um, can you go into detail about how it came to be and what you actually do there for people
sure.
who actually want to possibly see about coming to you and you know?
Yeah, I'm so blessed, James. I grew up in an era when music therapy was becoming more well known, and when research was starting to, sort of assemble itself around music, starting with Dr. Oliver Sacks, actually people before him.
Mm,
But there's been some incredible clinical research on music and what it does to us mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. You don't need the studies on this. That if you're listening to music, you need half the pain medication you'd need if you weren't listening to it. I mean, that's like overwhelming.
right. Yeah. Right.
So my clinical friends in the music therapy world who are doing this kind of work, this one-to-one work with clients with a therapeutic purpose, are just amazing people, and I'm blown away by them. I'm not a music therapist, I'm a piano player.
Mm,
But I discovered, as you've pointed out, that this behavioral healthcare effect of music is huge. It's just vast. And then, of course, my mom was able to demonstrate how that worked with kids. And I felt that there needed to be a more formal way where people who wanted to engage with their music with a purpose could learn to do that for themselves, whether or not they're musicians. And fortunately, over the last 30 years or so, there's been more and more awareness of that. And there are organizations out there, in addition to the American Music Therapy Association, there's one called the Palliative Association for Palliative Care Using Music or something like that, where clinicians who are not music therapists help to guide people through their end of life with music to
mm,
lessen the pain. And it's really remarkable, the work that's being done. But as we talked about this, um, I realized that there's a bigger opportunity. I got to work with an outfit called Guitars for Vets, and playing the guitar is great for post-traumatic stress. It just totally helps relieve the symptoms. And you don't need a therapist. All you need is a guitar.
right.
And I mean, I've found listening to music, of course, for me was an intervention for suicide.
Mm,
And I've found that that's the case for other people as well. You've talked about how music affects you. And it turns out that if you bring your intention to almost anything, it'll have a positive effect on you. That guitar playing for post-traumatic stress, they're able to measure the effect of that, lessening the symptoms of post-traumatic stress. And yeah, I think it's a lot to do with music, because music isn't just there to stop pain, and it's not just there to help your brain. It does all of it. It does like the brain and the pain and the emotional stuff that you and I have experienced.
right.
And then it has this inspirational thing, this spiritual, whatever it is, it just opens you up to potential. Why not make it possible for people to use music in that way and offer people some sort of a guide for their intention with music instead of just in the background, like bring it up in the foreground? What can we do with it in the foreground? How can we actually mind ourselves? How can we speed our change? How can we help our productivity? How can we, of course, lessen our pain and sort of intervene with symptoms and things like that? These are things you can do on your own.
Right.
And music hasn't been taught that way. In fact, it's hardly taught at all, to be honest with you. the awareness of music is just so low right now. But
Yeah.
Music Care is all about advocacy and education for people who get curious and say, how can music really come in and help me in this place? And this place could be a stressed out corporate executive. You talked about them. Could be a blown up veteran. It could be an at-risk homeless person, or it could be like normal people like you and me who are just sort of dealing with life and stress and the crazy of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And what can we offer in that place? And it turns out that there's quite a bit we can offer. You don't need a clinical therapist to come and sit with you. What you need is somebody to sort of take you by the hand and say, okay, James, we're going to look at this piece of music now. And we know it's something that you love. So let's unpack that and see what's working on you. And get behind that wonderful sort of overwhelming emotion that comes up. What's in that?
Right.
Why is that? And how can you use that? Because once you understand what's going on there, that's like a superpower.
Yeah.
And human beings we're built for that. It's not like a gift that you got that I didn't. All human beings respond to sound and rhythm. If we can help people understand the power in that and how to bring their focus to that, and then with intention use that, oh my gosh, there's so much that can be done there.
Yeah.
Not just relaxation or mitigating stress or stopping pain, because music works on us in a holistic way. And for me, I think the answer is that the ultimate goal of that is helping us do the heroic journey. Music can let you practice that before you have to go out and do it in real life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and why not practice? Because we need some heroes these days, people. You know, heroes and heroines are in short supply. So why not practice for that? And all it takes is headphones and some intelligence, and you're on your way. So Music Care is about that. And we have an online community of people who've been through the quest. Yes, it's a quest. It's a big deal to bring your focus to music. And so we like to present it as a quest, not a course. And people who've gone through that 6-week process are just some of the most amazing people I think I've met. I told you about the guy from South Africa. People who are ready for that journey are the people who are willing to take it on, whatever it is. It's like, bring it on. I can do this. And if I can do it once, I can do it twice. And if I can do it twice, I'm ready. I can do it every day if I need to, more than once a day. I needed to. All with a music player.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, I find that so awesome that you cater to their needs. You know, as you said, you know, you give them a piece of music that they like, and I feel you could get a really true feeling of what that music does for them. Because I feel if you give them something that they don't like, they'll give you the exact opposite of what you are trying to relate into them and kind of help them. You know,
I learned really fast, man, because the music that I might think is good isn't the music that works for you. So the music that works for you is music you love.
Right.
Like I could hit you with Rachmaninoff and you go, Bill, give me a break, man. I want to go back to Talladega.
Yeah.
And you'd be right, because it's powerful stuff. And until you find something else that hits you that way, we're going to work with what you have instead of trying to force someone. This is the prescription music for X, right? It was like, no, that isn't going to work.
Right. Yeah.
That's not the right way to go at it at all. We've got to start with what's hard. So, yeah. So I love hearing what people love. The music people love blows me away in a beautiful way.
Yeah.
You know, and we can work with it because it's your music.
Now, do you have one-on-one sessions or is it strictly online?
Well, in the past,
before.
So from March or something of 2020 on, it's all been online, and that's kind of fun because when Zoom like this, we can get a small group together and actually work through the process as a cohort, and that's powerful because sharing music creates these connections that you don't have any other way. And what do we need these days if we don't need anything more? It's more than anything, we need connections, right? And meaning in our lives and whatever. And working together in Zoom, especially with this kind of a focus, like focusing in on how music works on us, that's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
And I used to do this, for groups and stuff. And of course, I've been in one-on-ones and whatever. It's the way that this happens. But to scale it up and to be able to do it with Zoom, it's been a real gift.
Oh, yeah.
To do this. Because we can make online real life connections happen over something that would otherwise probably just be, we'd talk about it on the phone, but we can actually make the music happen online and, and, and resonate with each other in the middle of that. We don't record it, so we're not going to get, dinged by ASCAP, which is fine.
Right.
I'm a recording artist too. I'd pay licensing if I had to. So, you can wander through it if you want to that way, but having people beside you, especially right now, I know it just feels so much better that way, James.
It does. So I just had two more questions for you, and then
sure,
we'll let you go. But I told you who I'm listening to. Can you give me some of your favorite artists that I probably haven't not heard before?
Oh my gosh, I have to go for strange ones you haven't heard before. I can't even tell you the name of all those Norwegian, folk song people.
Right.
Alexi Murdoch is one that came to me relatively recently. Have you ever heard of Elizaveta?
No, sir, I have not.
I'll send you an email with some of these.
Okay.
She's had some pop stuff that's gotten some pretty decent airtime, but there are people out there who are recording things at a level of authenticity, I think is what it is, that's brand new. Especially with COVID, some of the stuff that's come out recently, even the stuff that's come out in support of the election. I won't mention any names because there's some pop stars in there, but they're coming from a place of authenticity that really resonates for me. So if I'm hearing something for the first time and it gets me like Talladega got you, it's like, oh man, I got to pay attention to this. This is important. So let me send you a couple of those.
Okay, yeah, please
afterwards
do.
an email, you can post them.
Yeah.
But yeah, Elizaveta is one that people might know out there. Alexi Murdoch, of course, one you might know out there. There's some amazing new classical music being recorded, but I mean, oh my gosh, it's really weird. The name John Adams is one that resonates for me, and I got to hear a symphonic work of his. There's a lot of John Adamses, but I listened to this one, and it's not the John Adams that won a Pulitzer Prize for his classical music. It's another John Adams that also writes classical symphonic music. But it was just, I was in the symphony hall, it was full, and people around me were like, wow, what is this music?
Yeah.
And it was not Americana, but it was about the journey, the process of being a human being. And it really resonated for people. I thought I was the only one in the room that felt that way, but clearly everybody around me did too. So there's great music being written these days and recorded, and by all the bands. I mentioned the 2 Tracks. Check out the 2 Tracks, people. They're amazing. They're sort of a folk Americana band. Oh, who else do I love? I mentioned Kebmo. People know him a lot. He's out there, blues musician.
Right.
There's some great stuff.
Oh yeah.
I'm so excited by the music that's out there these days.
Yeah. So our final question for you is, where can our great listeners find you on social media?
Oh my gosh.
Everywhere,
okay,
right?
So I am on social media. I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I have recently, within the last 3 months or so, dumped my Twitter account, dumped my Facebook account. I am not anti-social media, but I am definitely trying to stay more authentic and more vulnerable.
Okay.
And it's not a political position, but it is definitely an anti-establishment position. And I think maybe for the first time in my life as a musician, I'm going anti-establishment on people. I just want to offer folks who are listening the opportunity to see a great documentary called The Social Dilemma that's on Netflix. Take a look at that and see if it changes your mind about social media. Now, having said all that, I recognize that it's a great way to publicize what you do. And I'm not immune to wanting to publicize what I do, but the best way and the quickest way to find me is to go to quest.musiccare.net.
Okay.
And with that as your starting point and landing page, you can find a whole bunch of, it's like that's where you go to start into the process. And then you won't have to worry about a whole bunch of handles.
There you go. Yeah.
So Bill Protzmann, once you get to quest.musiccare.net, you'll find me. All the websites, they're all there, and just, go for it. Go wild. I'll look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, I understand about all the handles because it's like, what? Oh yeah, this is that handle. I got so many handles. It's unbelievable. So thank you
I
very
know.
much for this interview with us tonight. It's really amazing to hear you're taking your journey to help millions of people around the world about music. So I just want to sincerely
You're so
thank you
welcome,
from the
James.
bottom of my heart.
Thanks for this podcast.
Yeah.
When words fail, you got music, man, and
That's it.
for all the good reasons. Thank you.
Sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Let's talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Ciao.